Morning, everyone. We're going to just wait for one moment, let everyone join us for this morning's program. Everyone, we'll just wait just one more moment, let everyone finish joining us. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Kelsey. I'm from the Hudson Library, and it is my pleasure to introduce this morning's talk. We are continuing our library's Tour of Turkey series with a special lecture more about archaeology and ancient history, particularly of two regions. One of them is a newer discovery of Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. And I am very happy to have Serif Yenen back again. He was just here on Monday to give a presentation. He's back again to kind of give us an overview of this history and this fantastic, just this fantastic discovery in the archaeological world. And so thank you. Good morning or good evening for you now, because it's 5 o'clock where you are. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you for making this presentation possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning to you all from Istanbul. I'm going to give you a presentation about the Neolithic period, which is extremely mind-blowing. So, as I always do, before I start my presentations, I prefer doing a small orientation, like an overview, so that we know what we are going to be talking about. So if you please take a look at the map of the world, and if I ask you to point at the middle point of the three continents, Africa, Europe, and Asia, you would probably point at Turkey today. So the lands of Turkey throughout history have always drawn a great attention from many different civilizations. And it has always been a crossroads between the East and the West, North and the South. So as a result, we have such a rich culture in these lands here. And the most recent one of these civilizations that have ever chosen this land as their homeland are the Turks. So the name of our country is Türkiye today, and that means the land of Turks. Originally, it was not, but it has become so since the 11th century. If you please take a look at the map of Turkey, it is, rectangular in shape, and it is surrounded by seas in three sides. With this feature, it's a peninsula. Size-wise, from one end in the west to the other end in the east, it is like 1,600 kilometers. In other words, it is 1,000 miles. By flight, it is 3 hours. And the Black Sea in the north, the Aegean in the west, and the other side of the Aegean is Greece, and the Mediterranean in the south. And as you see here in this northwest of Turkey, there's a small inner sea surrounded by the lands of Turkey only, and it is called as the Marmara Sea. And it looks like a lake, but it is not, because it has connections with the other bodies of sea water around. This Marmara Sea turns out to be the only sea in the world which is bounded by one country only. All the other seas in the world are bounded by more than one. That's an interesting feature. So there's a natural waterway in here connecting the Sea of Marmara to the Black Sea, and that is the Bosphorus. And Bosphorus is also the border between Europe and Asia. And the city of Istanbul is located on the two sides of the Bosphorus Strait. So in other words, Istanbul is the only metropolitan city in the world which is located on two continents. Similarly, at this point here, there's another strait connecting the Marmara Sea to the Aegean Sea, and that strait is named as the Dardanelles, and it's also the border between Europe and Asia. And during the First World War, the famous Gallipoli campaign took place in here, and the ancient city of Troy, the mythological city of Troy, is located at the mouth of the Dardanelles as well. So this little land belonging to Turkey here is like 3%, and it is the European part of Turkey. We call it as Trakya or Thrace, and we have two neighbors here in Europe. One is Greece and the other is Bulgaria. The other parts of Turkey that lie in Asia coincide with the 97% of the country, and the Asian part of Turkey has been named as Asia Minor or Anatolia. Especially the word Anatolia is a beautiful word. It's an ancient Greek name, and it means the land of sunrise. So it was the Greeks who lived in the West, and according to their perspective, this land was the land where the sun rose from. So that's why they called this land as the land of sunrise. And we still continue using this beautiful name for our lands. We have many more neighbors in the east. We have Georgia in the corner here, and then we have Armenia here, and then we have Iran in the east, and then we have Iraq in the corner again, and we have a lot of borders with Syria in the southeastern part of Turkey. As for geography, the highest mountain in Turkey is Mount Ararat. It is located near the Armenian and the Iranian borders. It is more than 16,000 feet high. It's always covered with an ice cap. That is the mountain where Noah's Ark is believed to have landed after the flood. And we have the largest lake here, Lake Van, with bitter water because of the volcanic formation around. And one more lake here in central Anatolia. It is Lake Tuz, T-U-Z. Tuz means salt. It's a salt lake. The rate of salt in the water here is like 33%. So almost half of the salt that we use in Turkey comes from this lake. And then we have two very important biblical rivers mentioned in the Bible. You will remember from the Bible that the Garden of Eden had 4 streams. So 2 of these streams of the Garden of Eden actually originate and flow down from Turkey. One of them is the Euphrates and the other is the Tigris. Both of these rivers originate from the high mountains of eastern Anatolia, and the Euphrates goes down to Syria, and the Tigris goes down to Iraq. And after a while, they merge and flow together into the Persian Gulf. And we are going to talk about 2 very important Neolithic sites today. And there is a major city here called Şanlıurfa. And these places that I'm going to talk about are new discoveries. Only in the past like 5, 10, 20 years, they have been very popular, and we will mention their importance and so on. And although this area looks like a dangerous area, you know, close to the border, Syrian area, and so on, I have to tell you, as a tour guide, I go to these areas almost every month. I'm a tour guide going all over Turkey. So these areas are my favorite places. And we can go to Şanlıurfa here with a flight, like within 1.5, 2 hours. We can get there, and there are beautiful hotels. The food is superb there. This is the area of the pistachios. This is the area of the kebabs. This is the area of the baklava as well. So the food, the cuisine there is delicious. So we're going to focus on this area. And these 2 rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, and the land in between these 2 rivers throughout history has been named as Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is another ancient Greek word meaning between the 2 rivers. So Upper Mesopotamia is actually the southeastern part of Turkey, and that's our focus today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, archaeologists, scientists looked at the ages in millions of years, and by looking at the materials by looking at the tools, by looking at the raw materials used at different times, they named these ages with the name of the material. So the very first age is the Stone Age because it was the stone that they used. And Stone Age, especially in Turkey, lasted for about 1.1 or 1.2 million years. So it is called as the Paleolithic age with the scientific name. Paleo means old, lithos is stone, the Old Stone Age. Actually, it is divided into three periods in itself. And then came the Mesolithic age. Mezzo is middle, lithos is stone, the Middle Stone Age. So the Middle Stone Age, in comparison to the Paleolithic age, is so short, from about 16,000 BC until about 10,000 BC. Then something very important happened, and this was more like a revolution. And this new period in which the people, the Homo sapiens, were able to cultivate plants, I mean, in other words, discovered agriculture, when they were able to settle down. So it was like a revolution. That's why this new age was also named as the Neolithic Revolution or the Neolithic Age, the New Stone Age. From about 10,000 BC, continuing until about 5,500. In about 5,500, in Anatolia, people of Anatolia were able to shape copper. They were able to melt copper and make tools from copper. That's why that period was named as the Copper Stone Age, and the scientific name of this age is the Chalcolithic Age, continuing from about 5,500 until about 3,000. In 3000 came the use of bronze. People of Anatolia were able to obtain an alloy named as bronze by mixing copper and tin. In comparison to iron, this was very soft, but easy to shape, easy to reach the temperature which would be enough to shape this alloy. So that's why Bronze Age was a very convenient age, which started in 3000 and it continued until 1200. After 1200, finally, people of Anatolia were able to reach the temperature which was able to melt iron. It requires a lot of heat. It was not easy to reach that heat. It was only possible in about 1100 BC. So this age was named as the Iron Age, and Iron Age continued until about 700 BC. So these are the periods of Anatolia with the approximate starting and ending years. If we go back to the Old Stone Age again, from 1.1 million until about 16,000, this was the period in which the hunter-gatherers and the nomadic people, this was pre-agriculture, and in itself, it is divided into three periods. The first period was the longest, from about 1.1 million until about 125,000. This was named as the Lower Paleolithic period, and this was the period in which the Homo erectus, the hominins, lived. Then came the Middle Paleolithic period, like from 125,000 until about 40,000, and this was the period in which we had the Neanderthals. And in about 40,000, Upper Paleolithic started, and that Upper Paleolithic period continued until about 16,000, and this was the time of the Homo sapiens. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we come back to the Turkish map again, there is a city here in the Aegean region, in the inner part of the Aegean region, called as Denizli. Like 25 years ago, a geologist from this area, from the university in Denizli, by coincidence, found a fossil piece in one of the marble quarries there. And that fossil piece was later on identified to be a skull piece belonging to Homo erectus, and it was identified to be 1.1 million years old. This was the first time that pieces, bones of the Homo erectus were discovered in Anatolia. It was a beautiful discovery. And this specimen, as I said, it was the first Homo erectus discovered in Turkey. With this discovery, now we understand that on the way back and forth from Africa, Homo erectus had to pass through Anatolia, and they left their traces in Anatolia. And if we go to two caves, one of them is very close to Istanbul and the other is on the Mediterranean coast. The one in Istanbul is called as Yarımburgaz. And Yarımburgaz cave was the place where they found the earliest traces of humans in Turkey, going as early as like 250,000 BC. They didn't find the bones of Homo erectus, but they found the traces of the Homo erectus that lived in this cave. And we understand that Homo erectus lived here in groups of 20, 25 people. And this happened like 250, 300,000 years before now. Another very important piece that they discovered in this cave was a bear mandible fragment. The name of the bear was Ursus deningeri. It is a gigantic size bear, and definitely we know that in this cave, these Ursus deningeri bears lived and they found their bones. The other very important Paleolithic cave in Turkey is the Karahan cave that is very close to Antalya. Antalya is a beautiful resort town which is located on the southern shores of Turkey on the Mediterranean coast. And in the Karahan cave, they were able to find all three phases of the Paleolithic age. I mean the lower, the middle, and the upper. Homo erectus, Neanderthal, and the Homo sapiens. So the bones that they found belong to the Neanderthals, and they are kept in the Antalya Museum today. And these are very important discoveries from the Paleolithic ages in Anatolia. After about 1.1 million years, then came a period named as the Mesolithic period, Middle Stone Age. This is more like a transition period. It only lasted for about 6,000 years. From the Stone Age, this was the transition into the New Stone Age, into the period in which settled life started and agriculture started. And we have two very important caves with the Mesolithic finds, and they are also from the area of Antalya here on the Mediterranean coast. And one of them is the Öküzini cave, which means the ox shelter. This is still the time when Anatolia was living or experiencing the Ice Age. So almost all over Anatolia was covered with ice, like in this picture. So from about 16,000 until about 11,700, there was global warming. So global warming started in the areas of Mesopotamia first. So suddenly, the lands of Mesopotamia, the lands of Upper Mesopotamia started to be more pleasant from the geographical point of view, and the ice melted and it became green, and they started having naturally grown wheat, barley, and lentils there. And the hunter-gatherers from all around, they were coming over to this area because life was much easier for them in these areas. So nothing was a coincidence. Because the global warming started here, early settlements are going to start here as well as a result of this. So we are now looking at the two rivers. The river on the left is the Euphrates, and the other one on the right is the Tigris. And the land in between these two rivers is named as the Mesopotamian lands. And because of the early settlements discovered here in the shape of a curve, that's why this area was also named as the Fertile Crescent. The early humans, the Homo sapiens in here, they started collecting the widely grown wheat and barley here. And in about 1,000 years, who knows, maybe by some coincidence, they were finally able to discover the fact that whenever they processed the seeds of the plants a little bit, and whenever they found the right season, the right climate, and when they replanted them, they were able to get new crops. So this was the discovery of agriculture. When agriculture was discovered and the early people didn't need to migrate around anymore because formerly their main concern was running after the food. So they didn't have to run after the food anymore because they were able to bring food to themselves. They even had some surplus food. So that means if they don't have to run after the food anymore, they had to quit nomadic lifestyle and they started settling down. And then the division of labor started as well. And it all happened here, either in the upper parts of Mesopotamia or a little farther down as well. So this new age is named as the Neolithic age, sometimes named as the Neolithic Revolution. It is more like a revolution because of these sharp changes. After 1 million years of hunting and gathering, people were able to deal with other things as well. So that's why in Anatolia, the Neolithic age starts in about 10,000 BC and continues until about 5,500. So the first few thousand years of the Neolithic period are named as the pre-pottery Neolithic period, pre-pottery Neolithic A, pre-pottery Neolithic B. So in the first 2,000 or 3,000 years of the Neolithic period, we understand that these Neolithic people didn't make any pots, but they used stone tools or stone vessels, stone containers. So according to the theory of a very notable professor from Turkey, so up until they were able to make pots, they must have eaten mostly barbecues, not many food with juices. So juicy food would be possible only after the discovery, only after the use of the pots as well. So after the pre-pottery Neolithic A and B periods, pottery period came later on in about 2,500, 3,000 years later. So the Neolithic revolution started here in the southeastern part of Turkey. And after about 2,000 years, these Neolithic people were able to migrate around and they reached central Anatolia. And 2,000 years later, they reached the Marmara Sea area. And the time that they were able to reach Europe was even later. So 10,000 BC here in southeastern part of Turkey, 8,000 in central Anatolia, 6,000 around Istanbul, maybe 5,000, 4,000 in Europe. This is how the Neolithic people moved. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to start with some serious talk. In Şanlıurfa, the major city, very close to the Euphrates River, very close to the Syrian border as well. There was one German archaeologist working in an excavation which was going to stay under the water, flooded water of the one of the largest dams in the world, the Atatürk Dam on the Euphrates River. You know, in the past like 35 years, Turkey has been working on tens of different water projects. Some of them were among the largest dams in the world as well. And this was a big concern for archaeologists in Turkey, because if you build a big dam, it means there's going to be a very big area behind the dam, which is going to be flooded with water, and there's going to be an artificial lake there. And those areas will not be accessible anymore. It's a big concern. If there are any archaeological sites under these places, you will not have a chance to go back to these places anymore. That's why, like 35 years ago, Turkey made some quick surveys, and they spotted some archaeological sites, and then they made some international calls, and they started carrying out some rescue excavations. So Mr. Klaus Schmidt, the guy, the German archaeologist, the guy in the picture, was here for one of these rescue excavations in a site called Nevalı. So when he came there, he was able to study the pre-pottery period of the Neolithic, pre-pottery B. So this is like 8000 BC. So whatever they were able to excavate from there, they took them out, they rescued them, and then they kept them in the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. And in the place, in the way that they found these megaliths, the pillars, gigantic sized pillars, they did the same thing, the layout in the museum today. So this is a photograph from the Şanlıurfa Archaeological Museum, and this is the representation of Nevalı, and all of these pillars are the original pillars excavated in the excavations of Nevalı. So when Mr. Klaus Schmidt was finished with the excavations in Nevalı, he was very much fascinated with what he found. These were all gigantic sized megaliths and mostly T-shaped pillars, and they were circling the monuments, the buildings, and they were all covered up. So they were finding extraordinary pieces there. So he had great interest in the area, and he was searching for new places to discover. And finally, they gave him some clues, and then he started excavating an arid land. Ladies and gentlemen, these trees are new now. So look, there is a tree here, a mulberry tree, that is the highest point. And on the hillside here, one of the farmers found some artifacts and took them to the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. And Mr. Klaus Schmidt was visiting for new discoveries in the area, visiting the museum. And the museum director showed him these pieces. And he was very much familiar with these pieces, because these pieces were very much looking alike what he had been finding in the excavations of Nevalı. So he found out where they came from, and the next morning he took a taxi, he came to this arid land here, and some of these pillars were sticking out from the farming land on the hillside, and it was flintstone everywhere, glittering with the sunrise in the morning. So, of course, he went back to Germany and got the support of the Archaeological Institute. And then they got the permission from the Ministry of Culture and Tourism in Turkey. And they started the excavations in Göbekli Tepe. And this was in 1995. So, over the time, since 1995, excavations have been continuing here, and they started excavating this area first, and then they expanded the area. Now, with the georadar scanning of the whole area, they know that the whole area covers about 1,000 by 1,000 feet. So this is going to be a very large area, and we were reading about these new discoveries in the paper, and as a tour guide, I was going to these areas, and we were able to visit the site. We were able to go into the archaeological site. There were wooden pathways. We would be able to walk inside here, shake hands with Mr. Klaus Schmidt, ask him questions. These are the megaliths. These are the pillars with some animal reliefs on them. So after a lot of excavation over the time, they had to preserve what they excavated. That's why over the time they put this awning on top of the site. And this is the present day view of the Göbekli Tepe excavation area. So what has been found in Göbekli Tepe? What was so important? What was so different here? This is Göbekli Tepe. So Klaus Schmidt, as he continued digging, he found these kinds of T-shaped pillars buried in the soil, but they were placed in circles, like 12 megaliths, T-shaped megaliths, monoliths. So they don't consist of pieces. They are monoliths, one piece only. And they, two more taller megaliths would be standing in the center of the circle, and the others would be surrounding it. So they did the carbon dating of these, and they found out that these pieces were going back to 9600 BC. So early stages of the Neolithic period. So these megaliths are about 5 to 20 feet high, and they weigh maximum 10 tons. And what is more striking here is that they studied the carbonized seeds of plants that they found in the area, and they found out that these seeds were still wild seeds. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we always thought that, according to the narrative of the books that we read, like in our history lessons and everything else, it was first the discovery of agriculture, and people, after they were able to discover agriculture, they didn't need to run after the food anymore. But this changed the whole narrative. Göbekli Tepe people who built these T-shaped pillars, who carved these T-shaped pillars, who built circular buildings with these T-shaped pillars, were actually still the hunter-gatherers. So these buildings were pre-agriculture. This was extremely important. So this changed the whole narratives. So now we understand that the so-called primitive hunter-gatherers were able to build sophisticated buildings. So Mr. Klaus Schmidt excavated the first circular enclosure in here, and he named it as enclosure A. Then in the neighboring section, he excavated another circular monument, a building enclosure, and he named it as B. And later on, after a few years, he excavated this place, and it was named as C, and one more here, D. And then they excavated two more. But what is more important here, after they did the georadar scanning of the underground sections of Göbekli Tepe, they know that there must be around 22 of these enclosures. So only 6 of them have been excavated so far, but the rest are still buried and waiting to be discovered. So in each circular building, there are about 10 to 12 pillars, and with the unexcavated approximately 20 circular buildings, there must be totally 250, 300 gigantic pillars all around Göbekli Tepe. So one wonders, how would these Neolithic people, still hunter-gatherers, be able to carve these gigantic sized pillars at a time when they didn't have any metal tools? This was still the Stone Age. For tools, they would use stone. What kind of stones would they use? Flintstone or obsidian. So you're going to attach a handle to the stone, and it's going to be your chisel. So they would do everything by hand and by these kinds of primitive tools. And the way that they carried these gigantic sized pillars is thought to be like the picture, like in the picture. They must have used the the bodies of the tree as rollers, and they must have pulled them, these gigantic pieces, with ropes on these rollers. So very interestingly, the first phase of the excavations in Göbekli Tepe have taught us a few important things. What we learned from these, we understand that the dating was around 9700 BC. This was the pre-pottery Neolithic A. And these gigantic size pillars aren't so easy to carry. Sometimes you would need 200, 300, 400 people to carry one monolith, which is like 10 tons. So you can't do these kinds of work without organization among people. So you can't say, oh, come on, guys, let's move this here. So it wouldn't work like that. So we understand that the people of Göbekli Tepe must have had division of labor, coordination, and organization among themselves. And there must also be some high-ranking people giving orders to them. We understand that these Göbekli Tepe people, the so-called primitives, needed large public buildings and made big investments on them. They spent their lives on these buildings. And very interestingly also, Mr. Klaus Schmidt, before he passed away, unfortunately with a heart attack a while ago, he passed away. There's a new team continuing with the excavations there. And the lead archaeologist in the team is a British archaeologist, Mr. Lee Clare. But there's also a Turkish archaeologist, professor from the Istanbul University, who is in charge of all of the Neolithic sites in southeastern part of Turkey. His name is Mr. Necmi Karul. So Klaus Schmidt, when he excavated Göbekli Tepe first, he found out that it was not covered by soil by flooding or landslide or anything natural. He believed that it was covered by people systematically. Actually, this is the same thing happening in the surrounding areas in the southeastern part of Turkey. Many other Neolithic sites are excavated now, and the same kind of information is gathered from the other places. But somehow the new team under the leadership of Lee Clare are opposing to this view, and they say that the site of Göbekli Tepe must have been covered by landslide. So there are new ideas on this continuing like that. And so Klaus Schmidt claimed that the Göbekli Tepe people buried these buildings systematically themselves at a time when they didn't want to use them anymore. There must be a reason for it. They must have built other ones, or they must have migrated to other places. And the other information that we are able to gather from the excavations in Göbekli Tepe is that the Göbekli Tepe people had a very sophisticated understanding of life. You will agree when I give you more information about this. So what makes Göbekli Tepe such an important site is not only its long history going back to 12,000 years ago. It also shows that early humans, often labeled as primitive hunter-gatherers, were advanced enough to build monumental structures with aesthetic concerns and sophisticated understanding of symbolism. The carvings, the reliefs on these pillars are so sophisticated. There is a very complicated symbolism. So whenever they carved these shapes on these pillars, they were giving some messages, or they were sharing some stories among themselves. So they were able to convey their messages to each other, which we are unable to decipher yet. So we also understand that they had complex social structures and cultural practices long before the development of agriculture. So it is vice versa, not agriculture first, but before agriculture. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you like, let's look at the enclosures, the circular enclosures one by one. This is the enclosure A, which Klaus Schmidt started excavating first. So these are the two T-shaped pillars standing in the center, and the others are surrounding it. And this is the floor of the building. And in this enclosure, the T-shaped pillars have animal figures. Look, this is a bird, and this bird here is the one in here. And doesn't it look like this one here? Or, again, look at this animal here. It is an aurochs, and this aurochs is very similar to the pictures here. And there's a fox in the middle in here. And we are now looking at enclosure B. This was the second circular enclosure that Klaus excavated. And these are the two T-shaped pillars, and the other pillars are surrounding it. And they were all buried. Because they were buried, they were preserved well, and they stayed intact. So it is easy to study these enclosures one by one separately. And in this one, enclosure B, we can easily identify the fox figure here. It is the one in here. From today's view of the fox, this is the similarity. And they also found lots of sometimes rectangular, sometimes circular stones with holes in them. So these are named as the portal stones. So the entrance, the gates, sometimes chimneys, they were believed to be, in most cases, located on top of the building, on the ceiling. The entrance into these buildings was probably from the top. And these are the portal stones excavated in Göbekli Tepe B enclosure. So a demonstration of the site with one of these portal stones. So these places were always covered with a roof, and the entrance into the place was from the roof, and there must have been a ladder near the gate, the portal stone, and there must be a hearth inside, a fireplace inside. So these holes would be functioning like chimneys as well, and this was their buildings. So some representations of these portal stones, if a human would fit in these, and how they would fit, and so on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is enclosure C from Göbekli Tepe. This is even more sophisticated than the others. In this one, different than the previous two, there are two layers of walls. It is almost like a labyrinth. Look at these T-shaped pillars placed in the walls. And then there are two more T-shaped pillars broken in the upper parts. This is an aerial view, and they are standing in the center. Then there is something like a corridor between the inner wall and the outer wall. So this is like a labyrinth. And this is the third enclosure that was excavated in Göbekli Tepe. This is still the same, enclosure C, the third one, from a different angle. You can see the two layers of walls very easily in here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we go back now, I would like to draw your attention to this little animal relief in here. So this is the pillar in the center. This is the other pillar in the center. And in one of the pillars outside the center, there is an animal relief. Let's take a closer look at it. This is the animal relief, a larger picture. First, it was thought to be a reptile, but experts, scientists, are still studying these, and now it is believed to be a leopard. And how is that possible? If you look at these pictures, you can catch the similarity. And another very sophisticated enclosure, and this is enclosure D, and this is the largest one. And they were able to make a replica of enclosure D in the museum today. So it is a one-to-one copy, one-to-one replica, and we, the visitors in the museum, are able to go inside and look at these megaliths and see the size and everything else. In one of the T-shaped pillars in enclosure D, there is such a sophisticated scene of animals and figures. Let's take a look at it together. Just a moment. So, as you see, there are three motifs here in the upper part, more like bags with the handles. And there is a griffed, complicated motif here. There are a few birds here. And then there is a vulture in here. The vulture is like in the picture on the left. And above the wing of the vulture is like a sphere. And here it's a scorpion. And here it's a bird head. And then in here it is a human figure with no head. If you look at the colorful image on the right, you can identify the figures even better. And where is the head of this man here? Could it be the sphere above the wings of the vulture? You know, the Göbekli Tepe people made these reliefs on this stone in one of the most important monuments there. And there must be a reason for them to make these pictures, which we still don't know. But by making these pictures, they were probably telling a story to each other. They were sharing something with each other, and they were able to convey their story to each other, which we haven't been able to decipher yet. So these are, in a way, like the images, like the emojis of the time from like 9600 BC. This is still the enclosure D. Up until 2 years ago, these middle sections were still unexcavated, but recently they have excavated it all. So in the central space, it is all empty now. And this is the replica of the enclosure D in the Museum of Archaeology in the city of Şanlıurfa. As you see, these two T-shaped pillars are the ones in the center, and they are fitting into the sockets on the or in the bases in the center of the enclosure. These 10-ton pieces, how would they be able to stand here all by themselves by fitting into the socket here? It was impossible to be able to hold them up there. So the theory is very simple. These two central pillars must be holding the roof of the building, and the roof of the building, because it is also attached to the side walls, must be stabilizing these two central pillars as well. So on the other hand, these two central pillars are believed to be representing human bodies. How can we say this? If you please take a look on the sides of these pillars, you see, imagine this is the face of a human, and he is looking at this direction. And this is the right arm, which is elbow here. There is a figure of a fox here, and the hands are coming close to each other in the front of the body, just above the belt. and this is the belt. Let's look at here. This must be the face, but there's nothing in the face. There are just some figures. And this is believed to be the arm of the human. And when you come to the end of the arm, you can see the fingers. The fingers are turning around the corner here. So the two hands are coming close to each other above the belt. Let's look at these pictures from closer distance. Now we can see the fingers turning around the corner of the side, and the two hands are coming close to each other. This is the buckle of the belt, and underneath the buckle is an animal skin like that of a fox, like a loincloth. And the belt is continuing on the two sides with very beautiful and sophisticated motifs. These are all the same thing from a few different angles. You can see the fox skin here, like a loincloth, and this is the buckle, and these are the fingers. Another view. See, the hands are coming from the two sides, and these are the fingers coming close to each other. And look at the sophistication in the belt. We don't know what these symbols mean. So there is one question here. Were these circular buildings covered? How do we know? Let's look at it. They were, of course, believed to be covered. One thing is that these are made out of limestone. Limestone pieces are very soft pieces. So they are not durable against bad weather conditions. So after like 10, 20, 40, 50 years, they would get deteriorated. But these limestone T-shaped pillars are still in good condition. So from this, we can also say that they were definitely covered up once upon a time. Whether or not they were making a concave position or they were flat, it's another story. But we also know that the entrances to these covered places, buried places, were always from the top. They were covered with roofs, and the T-shaped pillars were also important architectural elements, providing support for the ceilings or floors of upper stories. Some of them had two floors as well. This is also interesting to add. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as the excavations continued here, Mr. Klaus Schmidt was able to draw attention from all over the world. In 2006, the Der Spiegel magazine featured Göbekli Tepe in the cover, and it described Göbekli Tepe as the Garden of Eden. You see Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. The Euphrates was a little farther up, and the Tigris was a little farther down. So this must be the Garden of Eden. So the Geo magazine in 2008 said the first temple of mankind. And in 2011, the National Geographic said the world's first temple. So these were sensational features in the magazines. Well, were they really temples? There are different ideas. At first, Mr. Klaus Schmidt regarded these places to be some ritualistic places, like gathering places, because when Mr. Klaus started excavating Göbekli Tepe, there were no other similar places around. That's why he said, this must be like a pilgrimage place. This must be like a gathering place. At some certain times of the year, people from around like 2,000 kilometer distance must be coming over here for some rituals, for some festivities, and so on. So in one of the stone vessels excavated in Göbekli Tepe, it is a gigantic size, 160-liter stone container, and they found some residues. So the residues of a fermented something. So it is believed to be maybe some residue of beer. And they also found lots of butchered animal bones. So these kinds of finds remind religious or social gatherings like festivals. So this was the first interpretation. But now, when I talk to the archaeologists from many different sites from the whole area, they don't want to use the word temple anymore. They say if we use the word temple, we would be limiting the function of these circular buildings. So instead of using the word temple, they rather prefer using the terms like special buildings, special enclosures, meeting places. So they must have done lots of important things there, including some ritualistic things as well. So, on the other hand, the theory carried out by Klaus Schmidt is changing a little bit with the new finds from around. When Klaus Schmidt suggested that Göbekli Tepe must be the gathering place from people from all around, there were no other places discovered yet. But now there are new projects, and this new project, as Mr. Necmi Karul, Professor Necmi Karul says, if you want to understand Göbekli Tepe better, we have to look at the areas, the surrounding areas of Göbekli Tepe, and we have to make comparisons. Then we will understand Göbekli Tepe better. So with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, they started a new project, and the name of this new project is the Stone Mounds, and they are simultaneously excavating 13 different places at the same time, and they are able to gather information from all these various places. And obviously, in almost every single place, they started finding the T-shaped pillars, forming circles, sometimes rectangles as well. So Göbekli Tepe is not the only place. So on the other hand, Klaus Schmidt didn't find any residential traces in Göbekli Tepe, but now they are able to find these traces. So the new idea for Göbekli Tepe now, it is not a gathering place. So every place is an individual place, and people lived in their own settlements, and they had their own special buildings in their own cities or settlements. For example, the new excavation team excavated a large cistern and with water channels, and a group of circular buildings attached to each other, implying us to be residential buildings, a few hearts, beads, and bones, tools made from bones. So these are the traces of living in the area. So it is not a gathering place only. On the other hand, there are lots of speculations about Göbekli Tepe. And whenever I hear about these speculations, is it the aliens who built Göbekli Tepe or all these kinds of things, I sometimes have the chance to talk to the archaeologists and I ask these questions. Unfortunately, they don't give any serious thought on these. They are just looking at the archaeological evidence, scientific evidence, and they only speak with the evidence in their hands. In one of the archaeological magazines, I came across with this calculation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is enclosure A, B, C, and D. One archaeologist drew lines from the middle point of these three circular enclosures, and he was able to obtain a perfect equilateral triangle. Can this be a coincidence, or was it calculated? Lots of questions. Göbekli Tepe was added to the UNESCO World Heritage list in 2018. And by looking at the animal bones in the area, the scientists were able to conclude the information below. More than 100,000 pieces of bones were studied in Göbekli Tepe. From the cut marks, they were believed to be bones of butchered animals. More than 60% of them were bones of gazelles. The other 60% of the bones were boar, sheep, deer, and some birds like vulture, duck, crane, and goose. And so far, 2 burials with 4 individuals have been discovered. They were not buried in burial grounds or cemeteries. Typically, they were buried beneath the floors of domestic buildings. These are really interesting information. Another surprising fact that we are able to conclude from Göbekli Tepe, we look at the floors of these buildings. Some of the floors are the rock itself, the bedrock, so it is waterproof. And some of them have terrazzo floors. Terrazzo is like a mosaic. It is made with lime, and they use stones, and they cover the floor like a mosaic floor, and it becomes waterproof. So the fact that the floors of these special buildings were waterproof tells us that they must be doing with something with liquids. Is it some sacrificial animals there that they are dealing with their blood? Or is it the holy drinks that they are serving there? They are dealing with some liquids, so they don't want the floors to be muddy. That's why they cover the floors with rocks, with stones, with mosaics, with the terrazzo floors, or whatsoever. It is always waterproof. And one way of providing waterproof floor is covering the floors with flat stones. So it is like tiles as well. If we look at the animals in the images, we notice that these animals are not mythological animals. They are just simple animals from daily life. Look at here, ladies and gentlemen. These are birds, these are snakes, these are scorpions, these are cranes, boars, foxes, and oxes, and ducks, and vultures, and aurochs, and sometimes lions as well. So maybe we can say Göbekli Tepe people might be worshipping nature as in shamanistic cultures, but these are just interpretations. Nothing is clear yet. When we look at the statues from Göbekli Tepe, we see very stylized statues. Göbekli Tepe people were pre-pottery people. They didn't make pots, but very interestingly, they were able to make very stylized reliefs or statues. Look at these statues. You can see the teeth, count the teeth of the animals and everything else. These are animals excavated in Göbekli Tepe. Lots of animal statues from Göbekli Tepe. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I was talking about the 12 mounds, the 12 hills, and the stone hills, stone mounds. These are the additional places that recently archaeologists have started excavating simultaneously. And with the information which are going to come from these places in the upcoming 5-10 years, hopefully we are going to have more information about the Neolithic people from around Göbekli Tepe. So let me show you a few photos from the other mounds, the nearby mounds, similar to Göbekli Tepe. This one is Sefer Tepe. You see T-shaped pillars are still there. These are the early stages of the excavation in these new archaeological sites, but very similar things there. Look at the animal figures found in Sefer Tepe. This is Gürcü Tepe. This is Çakmak Tepe. And the time period of Çakmak Tepe is even earlier than Göbekli Tepe or other sites. So Göbekli Tepe is like 10,000 or 9,700, but this is more than 10,000, Çakmak Tepe. And Sayburç is becoming a very interesting place. In addition to these circular enclosures with the T-shaped pillars, they also found something very interesting there. Look at this human figure. This human figure is in a relief, and this guy is holding his phallus, and there are 2 animals on the 2 sides. A closer look. most of the animals in Göbekli Tepe and humans are always depicted with their phalluses or sexual organs in erection. Very masculine culture. Now, I would like to bring the topic to Karahan Tepe. Karahan Tepe is the new discovery. Only during the pandemic, they started excavating Karahan Tepe. It is even larger than Göbekli Tepe, and it has been only like 5 or 6 years or 5 years that they have been excavating here. And we understand that there are very interesting things which are coming up from here. Let's look at them very quickly. Some unfinished T-shaped pillars found in the area, ready to be transported and stylized. And this is the general view of Karahan Tepe. This is the first, the biggest enclosure here. They call it AD, and this we understand that this is a complex with the residential areas or smaller size spatial buildings in the area, many enclosures, circular or rectangular, some still unexcavated, some residential and different purpose buildings. Let's look at them from closer distance. New walls have been built inside the enclosure at least 3 times, and 20 to 30 meter diameter, rock cut and built, 2 layered benches all around, and it is waterproof on the floor, and there are many holes. And we know that this circular building was connected to 2 other buildings in here. So together with these 2 neighboring buildings, this was a complex, a compound together. And what is interesting here, this place was used for a certain amount of time, like maybe 400, 500 years, with rebuilt walls. Sometimes they built new walls, so these enclosures became smaller and smaller and smaller, and they came to a point, and then they wanted to abandon their site, and then they systematically buried. They put down all of these pillars onto the floor, and then they systematically buried the place. That's why it is still in a good condition. Now, I want to draw your attention to these 3 buildings. The circular building on the left, something like a small pool in the middle, a similar one, but unfinished one on the right-hand side. So this is also from pre-pottery period. It was used for about 1,500 years, but later systematically buried. But they are connected with each other. It's a complex. So what I'm going to say here, the building here on the left is the circular building. And this is such a mind-blowing building here. It is a place, like a pit, like a pool, carved from the rock, from the bedrock. And the pillars here are original parts of the bedrock. So these are not the pillars brought there and erected there. They were carved from the bedrock there. And there is one, it is also, I'm sorry, this building here has a connection with the other building next door. And there is a window in here. And in front of the window, there are a few steps. And from the slope of the steps, archaeologists are able to tell that this part of the pit is used for going down. Let's take a closer look now. These are the opposite side, and this is the steps to go out. I'm going to show it again. Look, this is the enclosure here, circular enclosure, the window in between the 2 buildings, and these are the pillars carved from the bedrock, and there's a stairway here to go in from the window. So something is happening here, and then some people are entering into this section. Let me continue. And they had 11 pillars here carved from the bedrock. Only one piece is not carved from the bedrock, but it has been brought here from outside, and it symbolizes a leopard. So it is erected there. And these pillars are identified to be phalluses. And there is one image here, a face of a man, and he is observing, he is watching whatever is happening here. This is another view of the phalluses with the leopard in the center, and another photo of the guy, and another photo of the guy here. And this is the leopard in the center. And a closer look at the guy with a relief. His neck is like that of a snake, and he is leaning forward. And this is the window in between the two buildings. And the stairway is here. And there is a canal for a liquid flowing into the site. And they haven't finished the studies on the residue yet. So we don't know what was flowing from here. Was it water? Was it blood? Was it some drinks? We don't know. And you can see the canal here. So it is sloping down. So it is flowing into this pit here. This is the figure of the man. This is the leopard here. And the connection with the other building is on this side. And there is a stairway here to go out. A close-up of the water or liquid channel. And this is the stairway to climb up the other end, the opposite end. So one interpretation of this place from the professor, Necmi Karul, who is excavating the site, he says, if you are entering into a building from one side and going out from that place from the other side, there must be something happening there. He is interpreting this to be, who knows, maybe like a ritual, like an initiation ceremony for transition into manhood. You know, you need to go inside, whatever liquid there is inside, you go among them. These are the phalluses. Something is happening to you, and you are probably surviving, or you are able to run away from the leopard here, and then you go out and you change. And when you are able to go out, who knows, you become a man. So this place was also systematically buried. You know, they put a special layer of red soil at the bottom. And then to preserve these phalluses better, they put stacks of stones on them, and all the rest was buried with silt. So this cannot be covered with landfill. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be able to find the stones only on top of the phalluses. And they have homogeneous levels of different kind of soil inside. So this is one proof for the sites was systematically buried by people. Why would they bury? They would bury because they saw these places as their sacred places, and they wanted to preserve them. They don't want others to be able to reach these places after they themselves left these places. These are a few photos of the residential buildings from Karahan Tepe in smaller sizes. Over the time, they left the circular buildings, and little by little, they were transitioning to the rectangular buildings. The Neolithic people were not able to build rectangular buildings right away. Building rectangular buildings with the 90-degree angles in the corners was not an easy thing for them. But building the enclosures circular was easier. So that's why the transition didn't happen right away. So they had curved corners first, And then the rectangular buildings came later, like after about 2,000 years. More photos from the enclosures from Karahan Tepe. They found hundreds of stone vessels, still pre-pottery. They didn't have pots, but they had stone vessels. And recently, only last year, they started excavating a new circular building. And if you please take a look, we can see half of the circle here, but the other half hasn't been excavated yet. They are going to continue with it this year. Here, there is a little hole, and here, there is a statue. We're going to come to this statue. This is the statue of a man. Take a look. Again, this is the hall. This is something like an altar. They found lots of stone plates in here. Some of them are still there. And this is the statue of a man holding his phallus. Let's look at it from closer distance. Again, this is the man holding his phallus. And these are the stone plates. And coming closer, this man is holding his phallus, but we can count the ribs in his body. So this man was gigantic, or is gigantic. It is 245 centimeter tall, and in other words, he's 8 feet tall. And he is holding a big phallus with his two hands. And we can count the exact and correct number of the ribs of the body. So this is a very interesting statue. In this statue, larger than the life size, the upper part of the body is symbolizing the dead body, but the lower part of the body is symbolizing the live body, especially with his phallus in erection. So this refers to a relation between death and life, but we don't know what it is. Now we have a better view of the ribs. And at the bottom of the flat section here, they found a bird, this bird. This bird today has been taken to the museum and exhibited in the museum, but the original location for the bird was here. And they are keeping the statue in situ, in the place where they found it. It was found in a few pieces, and they put the pieces together, and they placed him in his seat, and he is exhibited there in the site. So the bird is in the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. And when we go to the Şanlıurfa Museum, of course, there is a new section now, just 2 years old, and they started exhibiting lots of statues brought there, both from Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. There is a new section, one big room, only for Karahan Tepe artifacts. So these are the statues brought there to the museum from Karahan Tepe. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please, let's look at this statue in the middle. Can you identify a man here? He's bending down, and these are his legs, and he is carrying a leopard on his back. Why would a man carry a leopard on his back? Did he hunt it? Did he beat it? Is he showing off with it? Is he kind of deifying it? Whatever your interpretation is, you are welcome to make. This one, a man is sitting on a stone, and look at his arms, and the head is missing, but look at the chest. You can see the ribs here as well. This is another man, very unusual size of a head, but like similar to this, he is kind of sitting down. And this guy, who is carrying the leopard on his back, was found in the main chamber of the circular enclosure in Karahan Tepe. It was here and brought to the museum today. This is another guy, again, carrying a leopard on his back. And look at the nose of the man. And look at this very interesting looking man on the left and the double-headed statue of two humans, all from Karahan Tepe. Look at these human heads from Karahan Tepe. Stone plates, big sizes, like more than 1 foot, 1.5, so on. Graffiti or carving of a donkey on one of the stones. Very cute. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now have lots of places, but Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe look like each other, and they are competing with each other. If we make some comparisons between Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, we can say that both places date back to the same period, pre-pottery Neolithic A, pre-pottery Neolithic B. Göbekli Tepe, we thought, was the only place around, but now we understand that it is not the only place anymore. There are many other similar places. It is not a gathering place. Every place had its own residential area along with their special buildings. Megaliths are almost everywhere in every site, these T-shaped megaliths, and more animals in Göbekli Tepe, but more humans in Karahan Tepe. Yeah, this is one of the biggest differences. When we look at the statues from Göbekli Tepe, it is mostly animals, generally opening their mouth, showing their teeth, and so on. But when we look at the statues from Karahan Tepe, it is mostly humans. And as for animals, more foxes in Göbekli Tepe, whereas we see more leopards in Karahan Tepe. These are the comparisons that we can make between Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude my presentation here. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that presentation today. Yes, if you have any questions, please feel free. We'll have enough time to answer a couple of questions. I think that was fascinating. And thank you so much for the detailed explanation about how this is the research is evolving at these sites as we're discovering more artifacts and stuff. And I think the especially all the pictures you showed at the end of all the artifacts was just really amazing. I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have a couple questions. Someone wants to know, are these sites now, I know there's replicas made of the one that you showed, of the one structure, but are these sites at all open to the public? Are they allowed to be visited, or are they restricted?
Yeah, okay. Good question. Very good question. First of all, Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe are two places in which excavations are continuing all year around. So they have been able to cover the Göbekli Tepe site with an awning, but now they are going to work on a similar awning for Karahan Tepe. But both of these places are open to visitors. So Göbekli Tepe is even more modern with a lot of facilities around, gift shops and everything else. Karahan Tepe is not so much ready yet, but open to visitors. The other mounds are open only in summer months when archaeologists close their university, go there for excavations, and they will be working there for a few months. And if you go and visit these places in summer months, you will be able to see the archaeologists, ask your questions. They are generally very much welcoming. So it is not only Göbekli Tepe. When you go there, at least you have to go Karahan Tepe as well. Almost all of the artifacts taken from these places are kept in the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. So there are other places to visit around Şanlıurfa from later periods and so on. So Şanlıurfa is a destination all by itself, and there's a lot to see in these places. and they are open to visitors.
Great to know. So if anyone is planning any future trips or anything like that. I do have two questions related to the art, so I'm going to kind of combine them. I know we saw lots of statues of animals and of men, but are there any iconography or artwork of women at all at any of these sites? And also in the reliefs, is there any evidence of painting or color work, or is it just carving?
Oh, good questions. In one of my slides, there was a carving belonging to a woman only. I didn't stay on it long enough. Good question. Almost all of the figures, no matter if they are human or animal, they are male. They are always depicted with their sexual organs, mostly in erection. There is only one woman figure from Göbekli Tepe. It is a big stone like this, like this, and there is a carving on it, a woman squatting, and there is something coming out from her vagina, and she is interpreted to be a woman depicted while giving a birth. But it is just an interpretation. Much later, like 2,000 years after Göbekli Tepe, in central Anatolia, we have a very important Neolithic site that is Çatalhöyük. And from Çatalhöyük, we found a small clay statue of a big woman, generally interpreted to be the mother goddess of Anatolia, symbolizing fertility. She is depicted as a big woman, and she has big breasts, big body, and she's sitting in a throne. And there are two feline animals on the two sides. She is big because she's symbolizing fertility. She has given birth to many children. And very interestingly, like the carving in Göbekli Tepe, there is a little baby coming from between her legs. So with a difference of 2,000 years between the two, they are probably depicted while they are giving a birth to a baby. So this is the only woman figure from Göbekli Tepe. But last year, they found a new boar, the statue of a boar with the teeth visible, and they found color pigments, black and red. The color of the tongue is red, and they found it colorful. So it has been the first colorful statue that they found from this area.
Cool, that sounds fantastic. We have time for one more question. So someone does want to know, like, if, let's say, you are looking to organize a guided tour of Eastern Turkey, how many days would you suggest for such a venture? And then also, because I know you have a lot of different presentations. We talked before about how you even do presentations for the Smithsonian and all kinds of things. How can people continue to follow you and what you're doing?
Oh, okay. I'm very active in social media. So if you just type my name, Serif Yenen, anywhere in any of the search engines, you will be able to reach my Instagram account, YouTube account, and Facebook, and LinkedIn, and everywhere. So if I do any activity, if I make any presentation, I generally publicize them. I don't do regular tours often. I rather do private tours. It is not easy to find regular tours going to these places. The most popular places in Turkey are Istanbul first, and then Cappadocia or Cappadocia later, Ephesus, the ancient city of Ephesus, the ancient city of Troy, Pergamum. These are generally in the center and in the west. But I am working hard now to include these new sites in the program. So, of course, Istanbul is a must. Let's do Istanbul. Cappadocia is a must. One of the most unique places in the world. But from Cappadocia, going down to the area of Şanlıurfa is so easy. It's a matter of half-day drive. And there are a few more interesting sites around there. So I would say at least 2-3 days for Şanlıurfa and around, and maybe 4 or 5 days would be perfect. As I said before, very good food. In my personal view, there is no need to be concerned about the proximity to the border. I mean, everything is as normal as it is. I was there just 2 weeks ago with very good friends from the US again. We toured for about 10 days from Gaziantep up until Diyarbakir. We had so much fun and we discovered so many different things altogether there. So I think these areas are mostly possible with private tours, I would say.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that information. And honestly, your presentation was full of so much information. I can tell that you're really passionate about this topic. And I really appreciate it. And we've had many compliments in the Q&A. So I just want you to know, thank you so much
My
for your
pleasure. Thank you very
time.
much. Yeah.
So anyways, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Sheriff. It was fantastic. And I wish everyone a great day. And Sheriff, enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you for making this possible. Bye-bye, everyone.
Oh, bye, everyone.